The alleged texts that shook the internet. This isn't funny anymore. This isn't messy celebrity drama. And this definitely isn't just another Kanye West meltdown. This time, something feels different and far more disturbing. Over the past few days, the internet has been frozen in shock following rumors that Kanye West allegedly discovered disturbing messages on his daughter North West's phone. Messages that, according to online speculation, should never exist anywhere near a child, let alone a 12-year-old girl growing up under one of the brightest spotlights on Earth. Nothing about this story is confirmed. No screenshots have been officially released. No statements have been verified by lawyers or courts. And yet, the reaction has been explosive, because even the possibility of something like this happening has forced people to confront a much darker conversation. The kind of conversation no one wants to have. The rumors claim Kanye found the messages himself during a visit with North. The moment he saw them, he reportedly lost control, not in a performative, attention-seeking way, but in a primal, panicked, fatherly way. The kind of reaction that doesn't come from ego or fame, but from fear. Because when it comes to children, especially your own, there are no second chances. No wait and see. No PR spin. If you think something is wrong, you act. And Kanye acted. Social media, of course, did what it always does. Some laughed, some mocked, some recycled the same tired narrative. Here goes Kanye again. But others paused. They read between the lines. They noticed something unsettling. Why did this feel different? Because for once, Kanye wasn't talking about himself. He wasn't ranting about contracts, politics, or public perception. He was talking about his daughter, a child. And the rumors swirling around this situation weren't just inappropriate. They were terrifying. Words like secret conversations, adult attention, and even sugar daddy began circulating recklessly online. Again, these are allegations and internet speculation, not confirmed facts, but the damage was already done. People weren't asking whether Kanye was acting out. They were asking whether he was reacting to something real. And then came the most haunting question of all. If Kanye found something this alarming on North's phone, why didn't her mother? Kim Kardashian has built an empire on control, image, and visibility. Every outfit is curated. Every post is intentional. Every moment is managed. So how does something allegedly this serious slip through the cracks? That question alone shattered the illusion of safety surrounding fame. Because North West is not an ordinary child. She isn't growing up anonymously. She isn't protected by obscurity. She is the daughter of two global icons, one of the most famous musicians alive, and one of the most powerful women in entertainment. If this could allegedly happen to her, what does that say about the environment she's in? Suddenly, Kanye's long history of fear and paranoia about Hollywood doesn't sound so irrational. For years, he has warned that the industry preys on children, especially famous children. He has said repeatedly that innocence is currency in Hollywood, and once you have a famous last name, you become a target before you even understand the game. At the time, people dismissed him. They called him unstable. They said he was projecting. They said he was trying to control Kim. But now, something uncomfortable is happening. People are going back. They're replaying old interviews, old rants, old tweets, and they're realizing Kanye has been saying the same thing for a very long time. That his children were not safe. That boundaries were being crossed. That nobody was listening. And if these alleged messages exist, even in part, then Kanye wasn't spiraling. He was sounding an alarm. What makes this even darker is the timeline. This situation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It collides directly with Kanye and Kim's ongoing custody tensions, the trademark battle over their children's names, and Kanye's public claims that he has been slowly pushed out of decision-making when it comes to his kids. According to Kanye, he hasn't just been fighting for visitation or influence. He's been fighting to protect his children from becoming products. That accusation once sounded dramatic. Now it sounds like a warning. The trademark dispute was the first crack in the facade. When Kanye publicly accused Kim of trademarking North's name without fully explaining the extent of that control, people laughed it off. Kim framed it as protection, a smart business move, something responsible parents do. But Kanye framed it differently. He said control over a child's name is control over their future. He said once you own the brand, you own the narrative. At the time, many people sided with Kim. Kanye was viewed as erratic, combative, and unreasonable. But behind the scenes, leaked messages suggested he felt blindsided, like he had agreed to something without understanding the full implications. And now, with these alleged texts surfacing, people are starting to connect dots they once ignored. Because if Kanye believes his daughter is being exposed to inappropriate situations, and he no longer has legal or brand authority to stop it, then his panic makes sense. This isn't about clout. It's about power. Who gets the final say when it comes to North's life? Who decides what's normal? Who decides what lines are crossed? And perhaps most importantly, who benefits? The most disturbing part of this entire situation isn't even the rumors themselves. It's the silence. No immediate outrage from the family. No firm denial. No clear reassurance. Just quiet. And silence in moments like this speaks volumes. Because when the Kardashians want to shut something down, they do it fast. Lawyers move. Statements drop. Narratives shift overnight. So why hasn't that happened here? That question has led some fans down an even darker path. One involving long-standing allegations about how the Kardashian empire was built in the first place. An empire many critics claim has always blurred the line between fame, sexuality, and exploitation. An empire has openly accused of prioritizing image over innocence. And if that's true, if the system Kanye has been fighting against for years is now touching his daughter, then his reaction isn't shocking at all. It's inevitable. Because when a father feels like his child is in danger, there is no such thing as overreacting. There is only survival. And this is just the beginning. Because once you dig deeper into the Kardashian history, once you revisit the Ray J revelations, once you examine Kris Jenner's role as both mother and manager, the story doesn't get clearer. It gets darker: custody, control, and the power struggle behind the SCNES. To understand why this situation has shaken so many people, you have to look beyond the alleged messages themselves. Because if you zoom out, what's unfolding right now doesn't look like a random incident. It looks like the collision point of a long, bitter power struggle that's been building for years. At the center of it all is one question that keeps resurfacing. Who really has control over Kanye and Kim's children? Publicly, Kim Kardashian has positioned herself as the stable parent, the organized one, the protector, the responsible adult holding everything together while Kanye spirals. That narrative has been incredibly effective. Courts favor stability, media favors calm, and fans, for the most part, accepted it. But behind the scenes, sources and leaked exchanges suggest a much more complicated reality. Kanye has repeatedly claimed that he has been systematically removed from decision-making when it comes to his kids, what schools they attend, what brands they're associated with, how they're presented to the world, and most importantly, how their identities are legally structured. That last part is where things get very serious. The trademark issue wasn't just about business. It was about authority. According to public statements and leaked text messages, Kim trademarked the names of their children early on, claiming it was done to protect them from outside exploitation. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. But Kanye's issue wasn't that the names were trademarked, it was who controlled them. From Kanye's perspective, once Kim held those trademarks, she effectively held veto power over how the children's names, likenesses, and future ventures could be used. That includes music, fashion, endorsements, television, and digital appearances. In other words, branding. To Kanye, Branding a child before they're old enough to understand consent isn't protection, it's positioning. And when Kim allegedly reminded him that he had agreed to the arrangement, Kanye didn't deny that conversation happened. What he contested was the scope. He claimed he didn't realize how much authority that decision would give her. That distinction matters. Because once one parent controls the brand, the other parent's objections can be framed as interference rather than protection. And that's exactly what many fans believe happened. As Kanye became more vocal about boundaries, about not wanting his kids associated with certain people, certain platforms, or certain aesthetics, his objections were increasingly framed as erratic behavior rather than parental concern. And that framing worked. The more Kanye protested, the more he appeared unstable. The more unstable he appeared, the easier it became to sideline him. The more he was sidelined, the less power he had to intervene. That's the cycle critics believe he's been trapped in. Things escalated when rumors surfaced that Kim had considered changing the children's last name, removing West entirely. Publicly, this was justified as practicality. Privately, insiders claimed it was about optics and ownership. If the children carried only the Kardashian name, the argument goes, their brand alignment would be seamless. No conflicting narratives, no divided loyalties, no public resistance from their father. And if full legal custody were secured, then Kanye's objections wouldn't just be ignored, they'd be legally irrelevant. Now, to be fair, co-parenting with Kanye West is not easy. Even his supporters admit that. His public outbursts, controversial statements, and unpredictable behavior have complicated everything. But complexity doesn't automatically mean negligence. And that's where the story fractures. Because despite claims that Kanye is an uninvolved or deadbeat father, this latest situation, allegedly discovering something concerning on North's phone, suggests the opposite. If Kanye truly found something alarming during his parenting time, that implies he was present, attentive, and engaged enough to notice. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Is Kanye really absent, or is he being erased? Fans have pointed out that whenever Kanye intervenes, it's framed as control. But when Kim makes unilateral decisions, it's framed as protection. That double standard has not gone unnoticed. And now, with the alleged messages coming to light, some people are wondering whether Kim's version of monitoring her children is more about image management than actual oversight. Because let's be clear, if a child is allegedly engaging in secret communications that concern adults, that's not a failure of the child. That's a failure of supervision. And the idea that a 12-year-old could hide something significant from one parent, but not the other, has shifted public perception in a way nothing else has. Suddenly, Kanye doesn't look disconnected. He looks alarmed. And that alarm is rooted in something he's been saying for a long time. That his children are growing up in an environment where fame is normalized before boundaries are formed. An environment where access is assumed. An environment where powerful adults feel entitled. This is where long-standing allegations against the Kardashian brand start resurfacing, not as gossip, but as context. For years, critics have accused the family of blurring the line between empowerment and exploitation, of introducing adult themes too early, of treating sexuality as currency and controversy as marketing. And while those accusations were once dismissed as jealousy or misogyny, the pattern is harder to ignore now that children are involved. Because what might be a calculated risk for an adult becomes dangerous when applied to a child. Kanye has explicitly said that he does not want his daughters sexualized. He has publicly stated that he does not want them exposed to adult industries, adult platforms, or adult expectations. Those statements were mocked when he made them. Now they sound prophetic. What makes this even more unsettling is the idea, again, purely speculative, that Kim may have known about the alleged messages and dismissed them as harmless. There is no proof of that, no confirmation, but the theory exists because of history. Because critics argue that within the Kardashian ecosystem, attention from wealthy or influential adults has often been reframed as opportunity rather than threat. And that belief, if it exists, would explain the disconnect between Kanye's panic and Kim's calm. One sees danger. The other sees normalization. That difference in perception is everything. And it's why this story feels so volatile. Because it's not just about two parents disagreeing. It's about two fundamentally different philosophies of fame, protection, and childhood. To Kanye, childhood should be shielded, even if that means limiting exposure and money. To the Kardashian model, exposure is protection, because visibility equals control. Those two ideologies cannot coexist peacefully. And now, with allegations touching the most sensitive possible nerve, a child's safety, that conflict has exploded into public view. What's especially chilling is how familiar this pattern feels. A parent warns. The public laughs. The system minimizes. And only later do people ask why no one listened. Kanye has said repeatedly that when he speaks out, he's labeled unstable to discredit the message rather than address it. And in moments like this, that tactic becomes incredibly effective. Because if you can convince the world someone is crazy, you don't have to answer their questions. But now, those questions aren't going away. Because regardless of where you stand on Kanye West as a person, this much is undeniable. He has never been quiet about fearing for his children. And fear doesn't come from nowhere. The matriarch, the machine, and a pattern people can't ignore. To understand why so many people are taking Kanye's fears seriously now, you have to understand one name that sits at the center of the entire Kardashian empire. Kris Jenner. Because when critics talk about the Kardashians, they're rarely just talking about Kim. They're talking about a system, a machine that has been carefully built, managed, and protected for decades. And Kris Jenner is widely viewed as its architect. Publicly, Kris is branded as the ultimate momager. Strategic, savvy, supportive. The woman who turned a scandal into a billion-dollar empire and redefined how fame works in the modern era. But privately, she has faced long-standing allegations that paint a far darker picture. One that many people are now revisiting through an entirely different lens. The question critics are asking isn't whether Kris Jenner is smart. It's whether she's dangerous. For years, accusations have followed her that blur the line between parenting and profiteering, between protection and positioning, between love and leverage. And until now, those accusations were mostly dismissed as jealousy, misogyny, or conspiracy. But when children enter the conversation, especially grandchildren, the stakes change completely. This is where the Ray J revelations come back into focus. When Ray J publicly claimed that Kim's infamous tape was never leaked but deliberately released as part of a calculated plan, it shocked people, but not enough to dismantle the brand. The family weathered the storm. The narrative was managed. The moment passed. But Ray J didn't stop there. He claimed Kris Jenner was involved in the process, that she allegedly reviewed footage, that she allegedly helped decide which version would generate the most attention. If those claims are false, they are horrifying accusations. If they are true, they are even worse. Because the idea of a mother orchestrating her daughter's sexual exposure for fame crosses a moral line that cannot be uncrossed. At the time, many people brushed it off. Kim was an adult. Consent was assumed. The brand moved on. But now, critics are asking a different question. If that was acceptable then, what's acceptable now? Because allegations didn't stop with Kim. There have been persistent rumors, never proven but never fully silenced, that Kris introduced her daughters to wealthy, powerful men early in their careers, that relationships were sometimes transactional, that luxury trips, gifts, and access were framed as opportunity rather than risk. One name that frequently surfaces in these discussions was later exposed in a major financial scandal involving money laundering. At the time, Kim had claimed she returned from a gambling trip with a bag full of cash winnings. Looking back, critics say that story doesn't sit right. Again, none of this has been legally confirmed, but the pattern, the alleged pattern, is what's haunting people now. Because when you zoom out, the same themes keep appearing. Young women, older, powerful men, blurred boundaries, silence from authority figures. And then there's Kylie Jenner. Kylie's relationship with an adult rapper when she was still a teenager raised red flags even back then. The family publicly denied it, downplayed it, reframed it as innocent, just kids hanging out. But footage, comments, and timelines told a different story, one that many fans felt crossed lines that should never be crossed. At the time, critics were told to mind their business. Now those same critics are saying, "We warned you." Because if behavior like that was normalized within the family, then it suggests a culture where adult attention toward minors wasn't immediately treated as a threat. And that culture, if it exists, would explain why Kanye's reaction feels so disproportionate compared to everyone else. Because Kanye does not come from that system. He wasn't raised in Hollywood. He wasn't groomed by the industry. He didn't grow up believing controversy equals opportunity. His worldview is fundamentally different. Kanye has repeatedly described Hollywood as predatory, as a system that feeds on innocence and rewards compliance, as a place where boundaries are intentionally eroded so exploitation can be reframed as empowerment. And when he married into the Kardashian family, he entered that system head-on. For years, people accused him of being jealous, controlling, or insecure. But Kanye has claimed something else entirely, that he saw things behind closed doors that disturbed him, that he witnessed dynamics he didn't want replicated with his daughters, that he recognized patterns early. And whether you believe Kanye or not, it's impossible to deny one thing. He has never stopped talking about this. In 2022, he publicly said he would never allow his daughters to pose for adult magazines. He explicitly stated he would not let Kris Jenner pimp out his children the way he believes she did to her own daughters. Those statements were explosive. People accused him of misogyny, hypocrisy, and paranoia. But Kanye framed it as protection. He said adult content had destroyed his family. He said it had almost destroyed him. And he said he would rather burn everything down than let it touch his kids. At the time, people focused on how he said it, not what he said. Now, with these alleged messages involving North, people are revisiting those words with a sense of dread. Because what if Kanye wasn't projecting? What if he was remembering? This is where the generational concern becomes unavoidable. If there is a pattern, again alleged, not proven, of young girls being introduced to adult dynamics early, then Kanye's panic isn't about one incident. It's about a cycle he believes is repeating. And that belief would explain why he reacts so intensely, so publicly, and so relentlessly. Because to him, silence equals complicity. What terrifies many observers is the possibility that within the Kardashian ecosystem, certain warning signs may not register as danger the way they would in other households. Attention is currency. Visibility is power. And controversy is a tool. But children cannot navigate those rules safely. Which brings us back to North. North West is not just a child, she is already a brand. She attends fashion shows. She appears in campaigns. She is praised for her creativity and individuality. But critics argue that visibility without protection is exposure. And if North is already being positioned as a public figure before she's emotionally equipped to understand boundaries, then any inappropriate attention becomes exponentially more dangerous. This is why fans are asking questions that make people uncomfortable. Not because they want to accuse, but because they don't want to ignore. Because the scariest thing about exploitation isn't how loud it is. It's how quiet it can be. How easily it hides behind glamour. How often it's excused as just the industry. how quickly concerns are dismissed as overreaction. And that brings us back to Kanye's role in all of this. Because if Kanye truly believes his daughter is being exposed to something harmful, and if he believes the adults around her don't see it as a problem, then his desperation makes sense. He's not fighting Kim. He's fighting a mindset. A system that tells him his fears are irrational. A culture that tells him to calm down. A machine that keeps moving, whether he agrees or not. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Because once allegations involve a child, there is no such thing as too sensitive. There is only accountability, or the lack of it. When warnings stop sounding crazy and start sounding too late. There's a moment in every public scandal when the narrative quietly shifts. Not with a headline, not with a press release, but with silence. And that's exactly where this story is right now. Because as rumors swirl, allegations spread, and uncomfortable questions multiply, one thing has become impossible to ignore. Kanye West's warnings no longer sound random. They sound consistent, repetitive, almost obsessive. And obsession, when it comes to a parent and their child, doesn't come from ego. It comes from fear. For years, Kanye has been telling anyone who would listen that Hollywood is not a safe place for children, especially famous children. He has said the industry chews people up early, normalizes adult behavior too soon, and teaches kids that attention is more valuable than boundaries. At the time, people rolled their eyes. They said he was projecting his own issues. They said he was jealous of Kim's success. They said he was using his kids as leverage. But now, after these alleged messages, after the custody tensions, after the trademark battle, after years of accusations about control and exploitation, people are finally asking a different question. What if Kanye wasn't wrong? What if he was just the only one willing to sound crazy out loud? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Systems don't need permission to function. They just need compliance. And Kanye has never been compliant. That made him inconvenient, loud, difficult, and easy to dismiss. But when someone keeps pointing at the same danger over and over again, and then something happens that aligns with that fear, you're forced to reconsider whether the problem was the message or the messenger. Kanye has repeatedly said that his children are growing up too fast, that they are being introduced to adult spaces, adult expectations, and adult attention before they're emotionally equipped to handle it. He has said that fame accelerates exposure, that wealth attracts predators, that access invites entitlement, and that the scariest part is how easily all of it gets normalized. Because when a child grows up surrounded by luxury, security, and constant supervision, adults assume safety is guaranteed. But safety isn't about cameras or guards. It's about boundaries. And boundaries are invisible until they're crossed. That's why the alleged messages involving North, whether fully accurate or exaggerated by the internet, have struck such a nerve. Because they represent a worst-case scenario that parents everywhere fear. A child navigating adult attention in secret. A child learning to hide rather than ask for help. A child understanding enough to know something feels off, but not enough to fully grasp why. And if that's even remotely possible, then something has already gone wrong. What truly changes the tone of this entire story is how closely it mirrors Kanye's past statements. Years ago, he said the Kardashians were trying to control his children's image. He said decisions were being made without him. He said he was being painted as unstable, so his objections wouldn't be taken seriously. At the time, those claims were treated as paranoia. But now, when people look at the trademarks, the branding, the curated exposure, and the push for soul control, they see something else. A structure that doesn't leave much room for dissent. And dissent is dangerous when it comes to child protection. Because if one parent sees risk and the other sees opportunity, the child is caught in the middle. This is why public perception is shifting. Not because people suddenly love Kanye West, but because they're starting to understand him. They're realizing that you can be deeply flawed and still be right about one thing. You can be messy and still be protective. You can be loud and still be afraid. And fear, when it's about your child, doesn't follow PR rules. It doesn't wait for confirmation. It doesn't worry about optics. It reacts. That's what Kanye appears to be doing now, reacting to something he believes confirms his worst fears. And whether or not the rumors are fully accurate, the implications are deeply unsettling. Because if a child is famous, as protected, and as closely monitored as Northwest can allegedly be exposed to inappropriate dynamics, then no amount of wealth guarantees safety. If systems built on fame and visibility can miss or dismiss warning signs, then protection becomes performative rather than real. And if concerns are ignored because the person raising them has been labeled unstable, then the system doesn't just fail. It enables. This is why people are uncomfortable. Not because they want to believe something awful is happening, but because they don't want to ignore the possibility. History has taught us what happens when warning signs are dismissed as overreactions, when parents are silenced, when concerns are minimized, when institutions protect themselves first. And that's why this moment matters. Because regardless of how you feel about Kanye West, this story forces a conversation society avoids at all costs. Are famous children actually protected, or just managed? Are boundaries enforced or monetized? Is silence safety or denial? Kanye has said that when he speaks out, people call him crazy so they don't have to answer his questions. And now, his questions are louder than ever. Why was he excluded from key decisions? Why does control matter more than collaboration? Why does concern get reframed as control? And why does it take a public scare for people to listen? The most haunting part of this entire situation is not what we know. It's what we don't. Because the truth, whatever it is, has not been fully revealed. And until it is, the speculation will continue. Not because people want drama, but because people want assurance. They want to know that children, especially children born into extreme fame, are being protected, not positioned. They want to know that red flags aren't being reframed as opportunities. They want to know that a parent's panic isn't being ignored because it's inconvenient. And they want to know that if something feels wrong, someone is listening. This story doesn't end here. Whether through clarification, denial, legal action, or silence, the aftermath is coming. And when it does, people won't just be watching Kim or Kanye. They'll be watching the system around them. Because if Kanye's biggest fear really is unfolding in real time, then this was never about a meltdown. It was about a warning. And the scariest question of all isn't whether he was right. It's whether anyone listened soon enough